In a world of unknowns, where do we start? We start with what we know. It's easier to commit to things that you know, things that you believe. Did you notice I said what you know? When's the last time someone told you what to think? It's probably the last time you looked at your phone, or it may have come from the person sitting next to you. We live in a loud world, and it can make you anxious if you let it. It seems that everywhere you look and listen, your senses are being flooded with people telling you what to think. And most of these people haven't even walked out the concepts that they preach. You rarely hear anyone say, "I don't know." I personally think "I don't know" is a good place to be, especially when you're willing to find your own answers. Sometimes we can take in so much information so quickly that we can't see the simple. And the simple is, we have a mind of our own. I grew up in the rural mountains of western North Carolina, and I'm thankful for that. People there were blue collar, and I was raised in a roll up your sleeves and work hard for what you want culture. My male role models were rough and tumble Vietnam veterans. And at 20 years old and 5 days into the United States Army Ranger School, I had an experience that made an indelible mark on the way I go about my business, even to this day. On this particular day, we were to do a forced road march through the backcountry of Fort Benning, Georgia. Our rucksacks were heavy, and each consisted of about 50 pounds. We were then put on old government buses and taken out to the starting point. The instructions sounded pretty simple. Keep the pace that the instructors set and keep up with the man in front of you. But then they told us that we would be traveling an unknown distance and that the buses would be following, and we could quit and get on them at any time. The kicker was to the whole thing of that concept, if we quit the road march, we would be quitting Ranger School itself. This was no small fact in the scheme of things. A slot to Ranger School was extremely hard to come by, and you absolutely did not want to go back to your regular unit and explain to your leadership why you'd quit. But we all had to be in top physical condition just to be accepted into the school. So when we took off down the road, we weren't overly concerned with what we'd heard. But as the miles and hours transpired, we started having some tough conversations in our heads. At about 13 or 14 hours, the fact that we had an unknown distance ahead of us and a bus behind us, it started to be more relevant. Many miles later and deep into the night, I started hearing things that I'd never heard before. They were the sounds of men being broken, both mentally and physically. The sounds of hard young soldiers being challenged at first from the outside in, but then from the inside out. I don't know how many men quit and got on the bus or how many men finished the march, but I do know that there are men walking around today on feet that are totally flat as a result of that one event in their life. I've gone through many painful experiences since that day, but it's one that frequently crosses my mind. Here's why. It's because of what I learned. You see, the difficulty of that day had to do with vision. And that difficulty was not near as much physical as it was mental. We had two things going against us. The vision that we needed, the distance we would be traveling, it wasn't available. The vision we had The bus behind us only played to show us a quick way out of pain or a shortcut. Both of these were strategically placed and only proved to make our task exponentially harder. You see, what was irrelevant at the beginning of the day became much more important by the end. I'll end this story by telling you why I made it. There were other factors involved, such as me not being injured, but the reason I made it was simple. I believed in what I was doing. I had personal vision for myself that overrode the vision that I didn't have that day. Even in the struggle of what I didn't know, I was living what I believed. Please remember this statement from our time together this afternoon. What you believe is the most important thing about you. What you believe is the most important thing about you. What you believe may not be the real reality, but it's yours. And you do and will always operate out of your belief system. You're the one who continually walks them out. And it's you and the people you're responsible for who will experience the results. So how did you come to the beliefs that you have? Something formed what you believe to be true. Was it because of something you heard that sounded good? Or was it because you walked them out and proved them to be true for yourself? For most of us, ours were formed by our parents or the homes that we grew up in. But it's dangerous to be shallow in these beliefs or to adopt someone else's truths. Here's why. We all know that we're not going to stick with anything long unless we have owned it for ourselves or proven it to be true. And we are building a belief system and core values that for the most part will be drawn off of the rest of our lives. Not all, but most will become a part of us that never has to be revisited and will build and add as we go. Also, we need vision for the long term and a plan as how to move toward that vision today. Beliefs cause that vision, and beliefs and vision happen at the same time. My best days are the days where I have been intentional about getting still and quiet. It's how I get direction for where I need to go and why. In these moments, I have come to find out that I have most of the answers that I need right here inside myself. You see, it's hard to see sometimes up close and in the moment, but when you can stop and get still or climb up high and see the big picture, everything becomes clear. When I first learned to drive, I was taught to look out as far as I could see, because when you look just in front of the vehicle, you're constantly adjusting and often surprised. I think that's a great analogy for acquiring your beliefs and personal vision. When we have our belief system in place, we can make decisions today based on where we have previously decided that we should go. One of the biggest enemies of this still and quiet is outside noise or just plain busyness. But I think the most detrimental thing that we can practice is to be doing things that we absolutely do not believe in. And we all do this to a certain extent. Once we know the truth, then we're responsible for the truth. And if we're doing things that we don't believe, then we're carrying around extra weight and heaviness that, quite frankly, we weren't designed to carry. And that's the truth. One of the best ways to tell if our thought processes are correct is to look at the results of what we do and do regularly. Are they healthy or unhealthy? So in closing, beliefs cause vision, both for the long and for the short term. Beliefs cause identity. They help us to see ourselves as confident, healthy, and able to make good choices. Beliefs help us to manage the things that are within our control. Beliefs set boundaries. They help us to know what we're going to do in the dark because of what's been decided in the daylight. Beliefs set standards. They give us accountability and help create a culture of safety, not only for ourselves, but for the ones that we're responsible for. And finally, beliefs cause commitment. Commitment means closing certain doors in favor of opening a better one. We've heard it said that life's better with options. Well, not always. As long as certain doors are open, it's easier not to commit to anything at all. So in a world of unknowns, where do you start? You start with what you know, your beliefs. Then at least you'll know what to expect from one person. A healthy, stable you. Don't just exist on popular worldviews or someone's sexy opinions. Live what you believe. You may not be listening to the articulate, but you will be listening to the authentic. Life is much better lived when it's not based on what's going on around you, but it's based on what's going on inside you.